Okay, so I went to CPS site to report Cynthia Olvera because Cynthia Olvera threatened to rape my son and molest him and give him herpes and AIDS, and I just need to report her, and there's too many people involved. She threatened to molest my son, so let's just go into this. So I found out the information about how to report her, but she have a lot of people covering for her, including the Conroe Police Department and Tracy Judge Gilbert. So I have to go through the action of actually filing a report and reporting that she did this witchcraft, threatening to molest my son, and they have a lot of people covering this up. And they're trying to make it seem like I'm making false allegations against her on my channel by telling that they threatened to molest my son and are trying to set me up to be murdered for shooting Austin in the leg. And they're trying to say I don't have a home or a job, but I'm reporting her anyway. So I found this information that I'm actually held liable to telling about what she said that she would do because I'm his actual biological mother. I gave birth to him and I was his caretaker, and she threatened to rape my son, so I'm required by law to tell that she did this. So I was incarcerated for protecting myself from Cynthia Olvera's son, and she threatened to molest my son and rape him while I was in the jail. I was released on all charges from the Montgomery County Jail for protecting myself from Cynthia's son, convicted felon Austin John Meador, and I am required by law to report anything to prevent anything from happening to my son with Cynthia Olvera and Austin John Meador and Joseph Olvera. They threatened sexual misconduct against my son, and that could disable my child and cause death. They threatened to molest him with several people, and with Austin John Meador, as well as abuse him physically to the point of death. And I need to report this information by law as well because this is my son. So we're going to go into some more details about how I need to contact CPS to put out this information. So it is saying here that I am required by law to report my son being trafficked and to prevent any form of child trafficking. Cynthia Olvera is not his biological mother and threatened to molest my son, and I'm required by law to report her as a child trafficker because she took my son and threatened to molest my son, and that is misconduct with a child, and it can be punished by law with everybody who she was threatening to traffic my child to. And she did it through a judge named Tracy Gilbert and through the Conroe Police Department. And they threatened to sexually abuse my son with Austin John Meador in Cynthia's home and in the Montgomery County Jail in Conroe, Texas. And that is child trafficking. That is misconduct with a child. Even threatening to do it should be punishable to some degree, and I need to see that my son is alive. So there was a lot of information showing that, being that I was his caretaker from the time of his birth, October 28, 2016, up until the shooting, September 18, 2018, that as his caretaker, with me having the information from Cynthia doing the witchcraft, telling me that she was a child molester, that I needed to report the information to Child Protective Services because I was incarcerated for protecting myself from Austin's son from September 18, 2018 up until August 22nd, 2019, and they had already threatened to molest him at the beginning of 2019 while I was still incarcerated for protecting myself. I had shot Austin in the leg, protecting me in Melbourne, and was pregnant, and they were trying to murder me in the jail and doing witchcraft, threatening to molest Melbourne as retaliation, and I'm required by law. So I looked up this information on CPS. So I typed in CPS, and this number came up because I need people to understand I'm not making any frivolous claims about someone threatening to molest my child. So she claims to have a restraining order against me, and she threatened to molest my son with whites in Texas and racist blacks and a lot of people out here, and she's trying to cover it up, and I need to report this information because it's required by law for me to report it, and that's my child. So this is the information that I found about the number to call. I took some screenshots of the information that I need to report, and this is a class that is for caregivers, and the judge was trying to say that I needed to take classes to get my son, take a class in lying, and she threatened to rape him. So I took this class just so I could get the information for you all to show y'all. First of all, I don't need to take a class, but it's talking about sexual abuse and child exploitation of children, and talking about what it means about sexual activity with children in the state of Texas. And I have to go through this very quickly because I'm using limited resources, and it's talking about sexual abuse. And we're gonna stop right here. So Cynthia Olvera threatened penetration to my child. When she did the witchcraft while I was in the jail, and she did it in 2019. I got incarcerated September 18, 2018, and by the beginning of 2019, she was doing this witchcraft while I was in the jail, threatening to molest my son, and she threatened oral, anal, genital penetration to my son. She threatened to make him do oral sex to other people. She threatened genital contact with grown men with my child. She threatened fondling my child's buttocks. She threatened sexual indecency with my son and allowing other people as well to do it, and taking a stance as a caregiver and then having people molest my child. She threatened sexual assault to my child, aggravated sexual assault with Austin and Joseph, and this is important information. I really should be calling 911, but the police department in that area is involved with trying to cover up this information. So I really don't know what to do as a mother because they had me in on the police squad that were also doing the witchcraft with Cynthia and threatening to molest my son, which were some of the men that she were threatening to pass him around to be sodomized. And I'll go into details. And this clip is talking about victims and perpetrators. And Cynthia is a perpetrator. Austin is a perpetrator. Joseph Olvera is a perpetrator that they threatened to sexually abuse my son, and they did witchcraft saying that they were Satanists and that they gave their souls to Satan and that they abused little boys and that they set their mothers up to be killed, even pregnant, and molest their children behind their backs with other perpetrators and child pedophiles. They said that they wanted me to know that they said that they would molest him and do these things to him and still set me up to be murdered for shooting Austin in the leg, and that she was racist. And so this say a perpetrator may be in a position of authority or trust and uses that power to coax or persuade the child to cooperate. The child does not have the power to refuse the adult's advances. And with Cynthia and Joseph and Austin and the courts keeping me from my son, he does not have the power to refuse their advances of them forcing him to do any sort of oral sex or anything to them. He is only 4 years old, and they threatened to do this when he was 2 years old, from the time he was 2 years old. And that's when they did actually say that they would rape him to death and give him herpes and things like that. And it says that it's underreported, and it's very underreported because they have my entire family trying to allow them to set me up and not tell what they threatened to do to my child. So when Cynthia was doing the witchcraft, she said that she was a Satanist, and that Austin was a Satanist, and that Joseph was a Satanist, and that meant that they were racist, and that they would molest my child and rape him as retaliation for me shooting Austin in the leg, and they were racist. And the perpetrator on this clip, it says the perpetrator has the advantage of being considerably older or mature, and that's what's going on with Cynthia and Joseph. They're child molesters that are older and mature, and the perpetrator is the victim's parent or caregiver. It's not me, but it's Austin. Austin is the child molester, and Cynthia and Joseph are, and they're saying they're in a coven that molests children when they did the witchcraft, saying they were Satanists and that they wanted me to know that they were threatening to molest my son, and that everyone knew that I was pregnant, and they were racist and setting me up and would do it as racism and go to hell for it. It says that the perpetrator often uses deception or force to get the victim to cooperate in sexual activities, and she threatened because I was in the jail with them trying to murder me, and that she was a Satanist that would have my family, my sisters, and everyone helping to cover it up, and my lawyer, that she could have my son and force him to have sex with police, with Austin, with Joseph, and her, and that she would do it as retaliation to me. This says that in most cases, the sexual abuse the child knows, likes, and trusts the perpetrator, and this is true. My son knew Cynthia, Austin, and Joseph. They were coming to my home when Austin was in prison. Joseph Olvera was coming to my home, and Cynthia Olvera was coming to visit me at my home, and I would take him to visit them sometimes. And Austin, I took my son to visit him a couple of times while he was in prison, and when he was released, my son did know that that was his dad, and they threatened to rape him while I was in the jail. So he knew these people. He knew Cynthia when she threatened to molest him when she did this witchcraft, saying that she was a Satanist and that she would molest my son and allow police to do it. He knew who she was, and he thought that she was his grandmother, and because that's what I allowed her to introduce herself as while Austin was in prison, not knowing that she was a Satanist and a child molester. And her husband Joseph, he knew Joseph as well, and he knew that Joseph was posing as his grandfather, and Joseph threatened to molest him as well, and he knew Austin as his father, and Austin threatened to molest him, and they threatened to rape him and allowed the Illuminati to throw my baby in a dumpster after everybody did it. He knew the police officers that she threatened to allow to rape my baby in Texas, in Conroe, Texas, that were racist, because a lot of those police have showed up to my location in my home when the police were called when Austin was abusing me. And these same police officers threatened to rape my baby with Cynthia and Joseph and Austin because I shot Austin, and she threatened to go through with it and kill my child and rape my little baby. And he knew these people. And so I'm going to go into the rest of the information, and this is about incest and intrafamilial sexual abuse. The most commonly reported cases of sexual abuse involve incest or sexual abuse by family members. This includes members of biological families, adoptive families, and step families. The perpetrator can be a step parent, biological parent, sibling, grandparent, or other relative. Incest most often happens in a father-daughter relationships. It can also happen in other types, father-son relationships. And in this case, sexual intercourse with a child is illegal, and it's incest, and it's inter-family sexual abuse. And Cynthia is Austin's adopted mother. She's white. Austin is white. I'm African American and Indian, and I shot him, and they threatened to molest my son. And she's Austin's adopted mother, and Austin is his biological father, and Joseph is Cynthia's husband. That's Austin's adopted father. So they're his adoptive families that threatened to molest him and rape him. And Austin is his biological father that threatened to molest him and rape him. And I am his biological mother that is making the report. So this would include incest of Austin threatening to molest and rape him, and he is the biological father. And it says that sexual abuse by a blood relative who is a part of his family, and those who are not related by blood. So Cynthia Olvera is not related to my son by blood, and neither is Joseph Olvera, who has my son. And Austin is his blood father, and he's a convicted felon, and they threatened to rape him, and I'm his biological mother, and I need to report it immediately because they did witchcraft, saying they're Satanists and that they know they're going to hell for how everybody is setting me up. And when they threatened to molest my baby and did all of this witchcraft, they all said that they knew that God was going to send them to hell for it. So they also threatened to give my son STDs when I was in the jail, and they did this witchcraft. She threatened to give my son herpes, and she threatened to give my son AIDS. She threatened to allow men to give my son AIDS. And so this report, this is saying that if a child has been exposed or to STDs and things like that, and I have to report her just for what she said. She also said that she wanted to have my son sexually abused and tried to say that I had done it. And my son went to Cynthia in perfect condition from the police at the shooting, and there was a witness. So they know that I need to see that my son is okay. And it's sad how people try to twist things around and hurt people and their children. So I'll just go back into trusting in my God and saying what's going on. So it says many sexually abused children have no evidence of physical injury, even when they have been penetrated. And they threatened to penetrate my son. They threatened to do penetration to him. They threatened to make him give them oral sex. They threatened these things. That's enough that for me being his mother, I have to tell. It don't matter what way you came to me telling me that you would molest my child, and she did this witchcraft threatening to molest my son. I'm going to try not to cry right now because my son could not speak. He was 22 months old when I shot Austin in the leg and went to jail, and they threatened to rape my baby. They threatened to stick their penises in my baby mouth, and he couldn't even talk. He wasn't old enough to be able to tell us what they were doing to him in that house. And she threatened to be raping my baby in the house, doing witchcraft, and telling the courtroom that my baby screamed for 6 months in her home. And he was not old enough to talk. He wasn't old enough when she threatened to molest my son and threatened to let all these men come in there and rape him because I shot Austin and he's white and I'm black. And I shot him in self-defense, and she took my little baby and she threatened to make them do this, and he was 2 years old. He could not talk. They threatened to make a little baby gag on grown man genitals when he couldn't even talk yet. He wasn't old enough. Only word he knew was mommy. And they hated me. And they wanted to murder me in that jail. And they knew he would be screaming for me while she was saying that she would rape him, that she would be raping him and molesting him, and had him screaming for 6 months in her house while they was trying to murder me pregnant in this jail. And I am sick and tired of them trying to bully me and trying to make me have to retaliate against you and get my child from you. And people are trying to say, you tired of hearing about it. No, you're not tired of hearing about it. You're Okay, so he was not old enough to express himself and was threatened to be raped and was only 2 years old, and they need to get my baby from her house immediately. She threatened to rape my little 2-year-old. He was only 2 years old, and she don't need to have him. She can't dress it up. You can't send him to school and take a picture. You can't hide him at anybody's location. You cannot hide him in your house. You threatened to rape my toddler, and you need to return my baby wherever you drop him off to me. And they already did it. They already kept him past the years where they shouldn't have had him and threatened to rape him over there. They kept him from 2 years old, 3 years old. They gave him to her and said she can keep him. She threatened to They done already kept my baby from 2 years old, threatened to rape him, and kept him and gave him away to her permanently at 3 years old, and then tried to murder me up until now, 4 years old, and she threatened to do these things to my baby boy, talking about she's a witch, and I don't have the money to be able to go against this lady and get my son from this lady in her home. And so this is what she threatened to do stuff to my son's bottom with these men. She threatened to do things to his private parts, and she used these words to tell me the things that she would do to my son. And for somebody to sit there and try to say you crazy and let white people try to murder you and say you up to be murdered and threaten to molest your baby, she used these words saying men's genitals, and used these words saying that she would make my baby boy give oral sex to Austin John Meador because she was a racist white woman, and because I shot Austin in the leg and he was white. And she said that she would make my son that I had with Austin give him head and things like that, and that she would make other men do it on the police department, and women and all sorts of people abuse my child sexually, and her husband Joseph Olvera. And then they're trying to
They're trying to bully me as a black woman in America and sexually abuse my child and then set me up to be murdered. And that's just the bottom line. And say that it's because they're racist and they're white, and they're saying that Austin had the right to attack me in my home because I was black and I didn't have a job, and so I didn't deserve to have anything. So it was okay for them to take my baby and threaten to rape my baby because I was black, a black woman that didn't have a job, but I still was taking care of my son, and just being racist and attacking me. And they took my boy and they threatened to rape my boy at 2 years old. They threatened to rape him while I was incarcerated for shooting Austin. They threatened to do this. Cynthia threatened to do it in Austin, and they threatened to do stuff to my baby's genitals. I don't have enough time. I don't have much time to put out this information with limited resources, using my phone to put out the information. And they threaten sexual engagement, sexual abuse of many adults engaging in sexual abuse on my child, and in secrecy. They threaten these sexual interactions with my child that was only 2 years old, and that they would cover it up, having the police helping them to cover it up. She threatened that Austin would have sexual interaction with my 2-year-old, that herself, Joseph Olvera, her husband, and the police department and black men that were in gangs that she was in, that was a racist gang in Texas, that they would transport my child from her home into the Montgomery County Jail and allow racist police officers to molest my son, and that it would be in secrecy. She threatened that Austin would allow them to do it out of racism, and that they would do it in secrecy, with the police not telling, with her not telling, with Joseph not telling, with my family not telling. Cynthia Olvera threatened that they will have the most wicked, racist white people in the country helping to cover up my pregnancy with the most wicked black women in this country, to cover up that they threatened to rape my son, and that they would be willing to kill everybody that knows the information about what they did, and that I was pregnant by Austin, and that I am pregnant, that they would go through and murder people from city to city and from state to state that knew the truth that I was pregnant, and that knew that they threatened to rape my son, and as retaliation for me shooting Austin in self-defense. And this is the words that she said. So they're trying to have to where no people are trying to have a no disclosure, where they're trying to have family and friends and Cynthia and Austin and Joseph have a non-disclosure about molesting my son, saying that they would do it. So now with them trying to set me up after I've been released on these charges, and they had pictures of my son still alive at school he looked grown. He was a 4-year-old. They had pictures of my son on my dad's Facebook page after I did some investigating, and Andrew knew they were trying to murder me pregnant in the jail around the time that they threatened to be molesting my son and raping him with the police department in Conroe, Texas. And Andrew Jones lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and my sister knew, and my other sister knew, and they were trying to set me up to be killed in the jail for shooting the gun and protecting myself. And they threatened to molest him, and they have had my son for 2 years, and I've seen pictures of my child on Andrew's Facebook, meaning that he has been in contact with these people after they threatened to molest my baby, after they threatened to rape my son, they threatened to stick genitals in my baby's mouth. I see my father sitting over here with pictures of my son on his Facebook page, while people are trying to set me up to be murdered all over the country, trying to kill my baby in my body. So when they were doing the ritual trying to murder me, they had women in my family and my father involved, and they were trying to kill my baby and me and my body in the jail. And I don't know what was the big deal of them trying to do this, to lie and say that I was not pregnant and murder me and cover up that Austin was abusing me and that I was pregnant. But it was such this big deal to everybody in my life and everybody that knew the information to do witchcraft, saying that, oh, we'll rape your baby as retaliation and have your family and and everybody trying to cover up that you was pregnant and that he was abusing you and that we took your baby and threatened to rape your baby. And so this is what took place, and they have had my son through a phase that I would call now a grooming phase, where they have people in my family that know that they threatened to molest him and trying to cover it up and have pictures of my son like they don't know what happened or took place. And my son is 4 now, and they threatened to molest him since he was 2, and he was not able to speak, and I have not seen him. And God is on my side telling me that she is a child molester. I have the right to have my child. Now, this is a phase where they continue to sexually abuse your child over a period of time and get your child used to being abused, because when Cynthia did the witchcraft, she said that Austin was saying that my son liked giving him oral sex, and that my son liked to be sexually abused, and that my son was going to hell with them because he liked to suck people's dick, that they made him like it. And this is not funny, and it's not a game. And so they kept my son from the age of 2 doing this witchcraft, saying that they abused him sexually and made him like it, and that they knew they were going to hell for forcing my son to do stuff. And so this says that when a child is repeatedly sexually abused, and it says sometimes a child is intimidated and forced in the secrecy phase. And she said that she did it. She said that she would do it as retaliation and force him to engage in the secrecy phase of being molested and raped by her and Austin, and that he would like it and then start enjoying it. And then it says the perpetrator uses their power to dominate and bribe, threaten, emotionally blackmail the child to keep it a secret. And they're blackmailing me to keep it a secret. And it says that boys, especially teenagers, but boys are less likely to talk about sexual abuse, and that is humiliation when you threaten to rape a child because his mother shot a gun and you threaten to sodomize him. You're humiliating him as a 2-year-old little boy and threatening to put penises and cocks in his mouth of people who have AIDS and herpes. What boy will want to share that information? What little 4-year-old knows how to tell anybody that? But I know how, because I'm his mother and I'm an adult and I'm still alive, and they're trying to murder me about the information. And they got all these people in Texas that threatened to go run up behind her and rape him behind everybody's back that was righteous on this earth, if there are any left, and sit there and go through courtrooms to cover it up. And these people will come for sex, and they will come because they want to retaliate against a black woman that shot a white man in this country, and they will rape my child, and they will do these things to him. And she knew that, and that's why they threatened my life. And they have had everybody setting me up to not have anywhere to live. He was too young to be able to tell anybody anything that they threatened to allow happen to him at that age. He was 2 years old, and that was the sickening thing about it, where they need God to destroy them in this country for saying that they would do this to my child and then laughing. First of all, I can tell you the truth about all of these Hispanics out here in Texas. They are child molesters. They coming over here from over the border doing Santeria, and they already ready to worship these white people and cover up the truth about my case. And every time I see the Hispanics come around me, I try to hurry up and move around, because I'm like, we black people and these racist whites threaten to rape my baby with a lot of y'all out here, and y'all trying to help cover it up. So I'm not intimidated by the Hispanics about reporting the abuse of them threatening to rape my child, and I'm not intimidated by my family members that don't want to stand behind me about these whites out here in Texas threatening to rape my child like this. I'm not intimidated by any of the organizations and women's shelters that don't want to help me, and I'm not intimidated by the police. I know that I need to report this. I cannot go another day as a mother being set up outside from place to place telling people that they threaten to molest my child, and I'm the main one who knows the information because they told me, and I'm old enough to know what everybody is doing. And the blacks are up under some spell where they are sitting over here talking about their slaves and this is white people's country, and that they're going to hurt me and my baby in me and lie and say I was never pregnant. And they even threatened to engage in molesting my son with these whites as part of some shrine or some ritual to white America, to say to hell with me and my black skin. I shot a white man in America, and they're all doing a ritual to molest my child, and with black people right there selling me out and engaging in it too, and talking about they're worshiping Satan right now and talking about they're not Christians. And that's all I got to say so I'm calling CPS because the courts are involved, and this video is loading slow, and I have to save this video and hurry and get this information out. I'm in Texas, and they're trying to set me up I'm in Texas, and I'm pregnant, and CPS already knows the information. CPS already knew they were trying to murder me in the jail, cover up that I was pregnant, and give my son to people that threatened to molest my baby after they threatened to rape him. But I still got to call and make the report as his mother. I have to do something because they are bullying me about my child, and these black men in Texas threatened to rape my baby with these people, and they're not going to stand up for me. I need the black women in Texas threatened to rape my baby as well, and they are setting me up outside, and they have been denying me medical care and abusing me while pregnant, and I'm just making the report.